Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to spend the next 10 minutes telling you about my company, Regentys. My name is Marc. I'm formerly the CEO and chairman of the board of the company. And what we have is a technology called extracellular matrix hydrogel, ECMH for short. What this is the world's first and only treatment, medical device-based treatment for ulcerative colitis and eventually for Crohn's, but we're going to start with UC. It is a first-in-class technology based on regenerative medicine. It's a tissue-engineered gel, which I know that sounds a little funny that we're calling it a medical device, but it's a gel, but that's how the FDA is going to regulate it. What you do is you infuse this into the colon through an enema, and it's a milky-like consistency, and once it reaches body temperature, it gels and sticks to the mucosa, which is the inner lining of the colon, which, by the way, has been badly damaged by the course of the disease, and precipitates a process wherein the mucosa not only heals and grows a new mucosa, but that new mucosa is genetically predisposed to stay healthy, even in a body that is predisposed to ulcerative colitis. Our peak revenues are anticipated to be over $500 million a year. I'll explain how we arrived at that number. The next bullet point down is really vital. We have been validated by FDA by virtue of a pre-submission meeting that we are going to be regulated as a med device, not as a drug, not as a biologic. That makes us unique and the first mover in the space. This is a real coup for us because the medical device path is shorter, faster, less expensive, requires less sophistication in the data to get to the point of FDA clearance. Our IP position is strong. I'll elaborate on that. We're going to start our human clinicals Q1 or Q2 next year. And the last point, Cook Biotech has an equity stake in our company. For those of you unfamiliar, Cook Biotech is the world's leading manufacturer of technologies derived from extracellular matrix. So just the fact that we have them at the table and doing our contract manufacturing validates that we're onto something special. How did we get here? All of the folks in competition today have a compelling story. I have ulcerative colitis. My dad had ulcerative colitis. My son has ulcerative colitis. First cousins with Crohn's. We're just hammered with this disease. My dad had to have his colon removed. I've been spared. I've been in remission for 11 years now. My son, not so fortunate. He went through all the litany of the drugs, starting with the relatively mild drugs, chronic prednisone, which is why you see so bloated and swollen there. Went up through the biologics and immunosuppressants, didn't respond to any of them, ultimately had to have his colon and his rectum removed. This is him post-op. And I saw him on the gurney immediately post-op with the NG tube down, up his nose and down into his belly and just looking horrible. I mean, it was a 6.5-hour laparoscopic procedure. And I thought, Marc, you're a biomedical engineer. You're a dad. There has to be a better way. It's what motivated all of us. There's got to be a better way. We have to do something better than the current treatment options out there. So I had this idea that if UC occurs because the body attacks the mucosal lining and breaks it down and it manifests as all these terrible symptoms, why can't we somehow regrow new mucosa? So I spoke to the surgeon about that. She pointed me in the direction of some of her colleagues. One person led to another. And eventually I spoke to a man named Dr. Stephen Badylak. I'll get to him in a moment. But he was the one who co-invented this technology with me. I had the idea of regrowing new mucosa. He said, I've got a way to do it. It's called extracellular matrix. Let me tell you all about it. Fast forward 5 years, and the company is doing very well. UC affects about 900,000 patients in the US. We're going to be targeting a subset of that population, at least initially, based on the fact that we're going to go after mild or moderate patients, not the severe patients. And we're going to restrict our access to only up to what's called the splenic flexure. So you've got the rectum, then the descending colon, the sigmoid colon, then the descending colon, and then the splenic flexure up here. That's pretty much as far as you can reach easily with an enema-based delivery system. So that's why we're going to go after about a 300,000 or 400,000 patient subset of that 900,000 patient population. Translating that into dollars, in 2012, it was over a $4 billion market. Go forward 10 years from that, it's almost a $7 billion market for the drugs to treat UC. We think we can tap substantially into this by virtue of having competitive pricing, but even more importantly, as you've heard a couple of times now, these immunosuppressants and biologics can have really devastating side effects. In the course of treating symptoms from UC or Crohn's, they can give you tuberculosis, skin cancer, lymphoma, and a host of other symptoms. Contrast that with ECM, which has already been commercialized in probably a dozen different clinical applications, virtually no side effect profile. It's documented in the literature. The adverse event rate is extremely low with this technology. And it's been used as a vaginal sling for pelvic prolapse. It's been used in rotator cuff repair. It's been used in burn and wound dressings. So it's even been used in the esophagus, so part of the GI tract. So this is a novel application of a technology that's already been proven safe and effective many times over. So what is it really? ECM is everything outside the cells in your body. It's what gives your body structure. It's proteins, it's growth factors, it's proteoglycans, things like that. And a process has been developed wherein you can strip it of cells and bacteria, turn it into sheets or powders. And in our case, we're going to turn it into a liquid. I mentioned Dr. Badylak earlier. He's the Deputy Director of the McGowan Institute for Regenerative Medicine, one of the world's foremost experts in this space, if not the foremost expert in this space, and he's been the leader in all of our preclinical work so far. Cook Biotech, as I mentioned, is a world-class CMO, contract manufacturing organization that has an equity stake with us. I wish I had more time to go through the preclinical data because it's really compelling. Look at the lower right side of the screen. We gave a series of rats an ulcerative colitis-like inflammation and then gave some treatment, left some without. On the bottom right, you see the rats that had our treatment. And you can see on that top layer, it's a confluent or continuous layer of new mucosa that, to experts, is almost indistinguishable from the rats who never got the disease in the first place. If you look at the statistics behind the data, it is not by chance that this worked. The ECMH really did have this impact. All the double asterisks that you see speak to the statistical significance as far as less weight loss, less blood in the stool, improvement of the clinical symptoms overall. So we know we're onto something special here. I said we've been vetted by FDA already to be regulated as a mid-tier medical device, and the clinical protocol's already been laid out. It will be a first-in-human study, which will start next year, followed by a pivotal study. We've laid out all the milestones we need to culminate in launch in early 2022, and this is defended by a project plan that we follow on a daily basis. Running short on time, I wish I could do 10 minutes alone on the quality of our leadership team. Suffice it to say, it's the kind of individuals that don't normally align themselves with a startup. These are normally folks you see at mid-size or large companies, but they know that we're doing something unique, something that's really got a lot of the risk baked out of the equation already, so they've chosen to align with us. For example, Stephen Wexner, you see the third name down, he is widely regarded as the world's top-ranked colorectal surgeon. Going forward to our board of directors, Michael Phelan, for example, he's, I think, the #3 guy in all of Boston Scientific, oversees many of their franchises worldwide, including their GI franchise. Maria Abreu is a name perhaps familiar to some of you. She's a frequent podium speaker at GI conferences. Steve Brandt, underneath her name, is the former director of the IBD clinic at Johns Hopkins. So really luminary names, real heavyweight names that have associated with our company. We've got a comprehensive IP portfolio allowing us to use extracellular matrix derived from any source, manufactured in any form, delivered by any method. We'll start with an enema-based delivery method, as I mentioned, and we have access to the small and the large intestine, thus facilitating our ability to treat Crohn's eventually. So overall, the value proposition is really strong. The management team is strong. We're addressing a huge unmet need in a large market. The IP position is strong. The regulatory strategy has been validated. Most of the risk has been removed from the equation. The company's 5 years old. It's got some level of maturity to it, so this is to be expected. So at the end of the day, I just wanted to end with something happy here. My son in the middle there, he's no longer that sickly, swollen 13-year-old boy. His sister is on the right. His girlfriend is on the left. He's 6'1", stronger than his old man, goofy, gangly kid, pro-grade rock drummer. Heavy metal, unfortunately. My house gets really loud. If I were flared, I would demand to be patient 0 in the study. If my son still had his colon and he flared, he would demand to be patient 0 in the study. The tech has never been our concern. Everybody that's involved with this company believes in the tech. Our concerns are the more conventional ones surrounding, will our IP hold up? Will we be able to raise the funds and stay operational? Those sorts of things. Ultimately, we know we're onto something special. It's been validated several times over by the people who have associated with us and the entities that have associated with us, and we look forward to partnering with Lyfebulb and UHG on the rest of our journey. Thank you for your time.
How long does an application last?
Unknown, but we've done, one of our preclinical studies was to analyze how much of this gel, which adheres to the mucosa, is shed in a certain time frame. 10% remains after 24 hours. But that's vital because the way this stuff works is once it reaches body temperature and gels and begins to degrade, the breakdown products, the protein structures, are what precipitate the recruitment of stem cells that are already circulating in your bloodstream, which then differentiate into the new colonic mucosa. We're doing our clinical trial predicated on 10 treatments over the course of 14 days. It's a guess. It's our best guess. Other than our preclinical data, we have no way to know if that's appropriate.
Did you keep the rats alive enough to subsequently keep biopsying them over
Sorry?
time? Did you keep the rats alive to keep biopsying them? How long the regeneration lasted?
We had one arm that we kept them alive for 7 days post-procedure and another for 14 days.
Okay, thank you.
As a follow-up question to that, you were saying that you actually recruit cells based on your application. So you
Yes.
could see that maybe in the beginning your reapplication would be shorter and then you would extend going forward? Is that something
Yeah,
that
it's
you call
entirely
it a
possible. I
regenerative?
mean, if we are dealing with flared patients, we want to get them into remission, so we would just bomb them with this stuff initially. And then we can envision maybe every 6 months just doing a prophylactic treatment so that you don't flare up again. But again, we don't know. That's what the first in-human study is for.
Is there potential for an oral product?
You know, that's been proposed to us many times. Right now, I would say the answer is no, because just the quantity, the sheer volume you would need to coat the left side of the colon, to say nothing of treating an entire colon, I don't know if you could swallow enough pills to make that happen. Plus, you'd have to navigate the stomach acid, et cetera. It is a long-term kind of a stretch goal for us, but it's not on the table right now. We're being very judicious in how we deploy our funds. That's a long-term goal.
What do you think will be the cost of a course of treatment?
We don't know that yet either. However, we know that we're going to be competitive versus the immunosuppressants and the biologics to allow us to tap into that market, but we are going to charge a premium relative to other rectal-based products.
This order of magnitude idea?
$10,000?
Does your relationship with Cook limit you in terms of your future supply chain?
Why do you suggest it might?
Well, I'm just saying, does the fact that Cook is an investor and you already have that relationship, does that limit your options as far as manufacturing your product?
I don't think so, and this is why. This is a very specialized kind of manufacturing process, and there are maybe 3 or 4 entities in the world capable of processing tissue the way Cook Biotech does. On top of that, they've been regulated as being adherent to ISO 22442, which speaks to herd control and genetic control of the animalia source. Ours is derived from porcine tissue. So, and they do their own manufacturing of products, plus they do contract manufacturing for other ECM manufacturers as well. So this is their business. They would have an enduring supply. They are regulated. This is their core business. Other questions?